Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Would you make sure to please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here? And please share this episode with somebody whose life it will make better. Rustin, what's up, man?
How's it going?
Good. Happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Our stories literally just recently connected. We have longtime mutual friends that we've known for decades.
Yeah, it's crazy how many mutual friends that I realized that we actually have. And surprised that we haven't met before now.
No, I think our most recent friend is Nico.
Yeah.
You were on his show. He was on mine. I was on his.
Yeah.
And then Chris Holcomb's a great friend of mine.
Yeah.
And as Nico was searching, you recently commentated some MMA fights in Canada.
Yeah.
And this is how you came in. Like, this is part of why you're here. Nico says, "Hey, it's my dream to commentate." And he's high-end Muay Thai kickboxing. He's like, "I don't really know how to talk about jiu-jitsu." He asked me to do it. I'm like, "I'm busy." Hegan was coming that weekend. Yeah, what about Chris? Chris is like, "I can only do half." And then Noah and Chris said, "Hey, do you know Rustin?" I go, "Who's Rustin? You guys keep talking about Rustin."
Yeah, and it was, I had never commentated MMA before, but I had, I fought before. I've competed. And I think that I was like, why not? This could be really, really fun. And it was all amateur fights. So I didn't feel like the stress of like it being like this pro show and stuff like that. So, yeah, I was excited to, and like Nico was pretty cool. It was, I felt like we were friends. We had been friends. And so like, there was not that weird kind of like, getting to know somebody kind of thing. It was already like I had knew him before, which was pretty cool.
This is good vibe because you need that on any kind of like partnership, especially commentary. You hear good commentary and they have something, right?
Yep.
Well, that's really cool. I love that. So we were talking just a little bit offline before we went live with the show. Obviously, military background. First of all, thank you. Thank you for serving our country.
Thanks.
And
for me, I just thought it was, I didn't have anything else that I was doing. And I said, why not? It was 1993, and it was kind of a different time at that. And, it was, I felt like I wrestled and I didn't have any like scholarships to go to a college, and the college, it was a community college in my town. And I just I wasn't excited to go to school. And my friend was like, "Man, you should come and talk to the recruiter." And he had already enlisted, and I went down with him, and, of course they got me with the videos, and, and yeah, it was, he was a tank mechanic, and I was a tanker. I was on the M1A1 tanks, which was really cool. It was a really amazing piece of machinery. We had just got out of the first Desert War, and it just had displayed this amazing, warfare, and we were unstoppable in that war, and it was really cool to be on that thing.
then you did one tour there? Desert Storm. So 93, you're joining. That's because that was 91. Was that 91,
so it was
92
after. It was right after.
Post. Okay.
Yeah, just right after. So when I went in, they were just getting back from Iraq, and then I got stationed in Germany, which was awesome. We had 4-day weekends, and we would travel, wherever. And I learned how to snowboard over there, and they had amazing snowboarding trips. So you go to Italy and, Austria, and just all these amazing things that you could do. And then we got deployed to Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia Republic of Macedonia. And at that time, there was Bosnia was also going on. And a lot of the infantry had been just constantly going back and forth between Macedonia and Bosnia, that they needed to bring in an armor battalion, and we were the first armored battalion to kind of take over an infantry mission, because we were just used to being on tanks, and this was all dismounted you know, walking through towns and cities dismounted, or in the Humvee. And yeah, it was completely out of our, league of what we were used to doing. It was very eye-opening too. But, we were part of the UN. Just, we had an American flag on one part of our uniform. You could tell who the Serbians were, because at that time, the town that we were in there was a lot of Serbians, and they did not like us. And they let us know.
They let you know?
Yeah, they let us know. And for us, it was really confusing because everyone looked the same to me, and they were all completely different, and they all knew who was who, and they all hated each other. And our mission, it was to observe, monitor, and report. And it was very difficult to come from a training of, to destroy, and then going to observe, monitor, and report.
Don't destroy anymore. Just watch and tell us what's going on.
And they would run us through scenarios that were, I guess, they were kind of going on or had gone on in the past, and how are we going to react to that? And one of the scenarios was there was a local that we had interacted with in the past, so we kind of have a history with this person, is what they've briefed us as, and he has now pulled a gun on our radio guy, and then they're like, "Stop! What do you do?" And it was just like, and like a lot of my first reaction was like, "Well, we're gonna tell the guy to like back off," and just going through the scenarios that you would think that you would go through, and then everything was, then they're taking you like, okay, now he shoots your commo guy, what do you do? And and it was like, well, are we being serious here? Because like, if we're being serious, I'm gonna shoot him.
Yeah. And
they're just like, if you shoot him, you will be punished under the uniform, the UMCJ. And I was just kind of like, what is? And they're like, this is completely different. This is an international incident that you would have caused. It was to a point where we would go on patrols and we would duct tape all of our magazines shut. They were more worried about us losing a round than coming under fire. And if we ever did come under fire, we were supposed to pop, smoke, and run.
Really?
Yeah. It was.
So even in that engagement, like even though that's not the point of the observe, report, do all that, somebody tries to kill you, they're saying you
pop,
can't,
smoke, and
you
run.
can't defend yourself.
Nope.
Because that would cause an international incident.
They were more concerned about an international incident where something like that would happen. What was really weird is we did our tour, and then the group that came in to replace us, I think it was them. There was Serbians had kidnapped 3 Americans, and they held them for a while. I can't remember. It was just kind of I don't know what ever really came from it, and you never really heard anything about it on the news, and which was kind of funny because, a lot of people didn't even know where Yugoslavia is, or that it's now, it's broke up into several different countries, and even the whole history behind that. There was a lot of just genocide that was going on in that area, which was just crazy. And it was a lot of it was a third world country. It was crazy. It really made me appreciate being an American and living in the United States.
Yeah, that perspective is always interesting, going somewhere new. And how much of what was on the news, how much of what the general public was receiving about that, if anything, is the actual reality of what's going on, right? So there's this concern of the optics of what happens, right? Like they're concerned about optics.
Yep.
Some pop, smoke, and run, that makes better optics. Yep. Don't defend yourself. Like how much of that was even present on the news? Because I was was 10, 11, 12 during those years, you know, the Desert Storm War. I don't remember much other than a little bit on the TV, but then you're actually in it.
Yeah, it was, you know, especially like the Yugoslavia thing is like, I think a lot of stuff was more focused on Bosnia. And then like where we were, there wasn't a lot of focus on that. And I don't think that trying to think, like look back, I don't think my parents ever had any type of news other than me talking to them, which was, we had satellite phones, you know, it was way before cell phones and stuff like that, which, you know, we could only talk like once every three weeks or something like that. Yeah, it was completely different times. And like the tanks are kind of useless at this point now. With drones, you know, there's not a lot of use for a tank when you got drones now.
So then when did you serve until? When was your last tour deployment? Talk about getting out, and then you end up here in Fort Collins, right? So growing up in Nebraska, I think you popped to and from Fort Collins. Now you're here. We're in Loveland today.
Yep.
Yeah, so talk about how you got over here.
So a really good friend of mine I grew up with in Nebraska was living in Fort Collins, and I had just, you know, learned how to snowboard over in Germany, and I was home for Christmas, and he was just like, you know, come visit me. We'll go snowboarding up in the mountains. And so I spent the night with him in Fort Collins, and then we drove up. And I was like, I fell in love with Fort Collins. And I was like, when I get out of the Army, I'm moving to Fort Collins. When I got out of the Army, I moved to Lincoln, Nebraska. I was living in a house with like 6 other guys, and it was just a party. It was a party house, and I needed to get out. And me and one of my roommates and his girlfriend decided to move to Fort Collins. And that was February of '98. And I was in landscaping. I was a landscaper, which was fun. I mean, there was a lot of work at that time, and you know, it was a lot of just being told what to do, and I was pretty good at that, just getting out of the Army. Then, yeah, so like, when would that have been? I had a really good landscaping job, and it kind of fell through. Taxes weren't paid, and I ended up owing a lot of money in taxes. And that's when I realized I needed to get a better job. And that's when I started plumbing, and which was a really, really good job. I love plumbing. And at that time, Fort Collins was really booming, and there was a lot of new construction that was going on. And then I met my wife in Lincoln, and she was my girlfriend, and then moved out to Fort Collins with me. Again, we're boyfriend, girlfriend at this time. She was going to the University of Nebraska, Lincoln. We were too young to actually be kind of living together at that time. And she needed to go finish her degree. So we kind of split up at that time. She went and got her degree, and then, you know, she had moved to Chicago after she got her degree. So we were split up, but we still kept in touch with each other. She called me one day, just kind of out of the blue, and said that they found a brain tumor, and that she had a seizure is what had happened. And from that seizure, they took her in, and they found this brain tumor, and that she was looking, you know, to have brain surgery. And so I'm just like, you know, we're talking, and I said, you know, can I come and see you? She was in Nebraska, and I drove back to Nebraska and seen her that weekend. And the surgery was on like a Wednesday. They went in and took a biopsy of the tumor. They had to shave her head, and she was pretty upset. And so I kept driving back from like Fort Collins to Kearney, Nebraska. In that time, she was going through all of her chemo, and then they had to do another surgery in that time. And we got engaged. I think it was after her second surgery. Went on our honeymoon and then came back and then realized she needed a third surgery. She ended up having a fourth surgery as well, and she had numerous rounds of like chemo and radiation during that time. And it was a lot of just kind of living 3 months at a time, just from doctor's appointments to doctor's appointments. And it just was, she had battled. So all that happened in a span of 11 years. She passed away in July. It was July 12th, 2012. I was, at that time, I had coached MMA. I had a group of guys that I was, coaching, and had to kind of let them know that I had to take a step back. It was real hard just to kind of just deal with everything that was going on. And I just needed to get out of Nebraska. And so Ryan Schultz, he's a good friend of mine. I grew up with him. He owns Trials MMA in Fort Collins. And he was just like, you can come and you can stay with me and my family. He said I could coach a fitness class, just to kind of get everything established. And, I was able to kind of get everything, just to kind of exhale too, because it was just very, it was still, hard. It's still hard to process at times. But, having them to kind of, just their support through all that was amazing. And then I really loved to cook, and I really loved the bringing of the family together, cooking part of it. And so I found a culinary school in Boulder, the Escoffier, and they have a really good farm-to-table program. Everything just seemed to work out perfectly. So I went and went to culinary school, went to Key West to do my internship, which was really, really fun. Super busy. I went Thanksgiving, Christmas time, and the island doubles in size just because so many people are there. And I was working 6 days a week, and it really made me realize that I did not want to be in the restaurant business. There was just a lot of cutthroat. It was, you didn't get paid a lot, and you had to work really hard. And I wanted to focus more on helping people cook healthy. And so that's what I kind of was going to focus on, is a private chef, and then even getting a food truck. And then, so I had all these plans. I was getting everything ready. I had my LLC going, and I went to Red Rocks for a concert, and it was horrible trying to get up to our seats. My leg was in a lot of pain, and I had this pain in my leg, but it wasn't this bad before. And I had thought it was a pinched nerve or something like that, because when you're, training, something always hurts, kind of. You always have a pinch. There was just always something that seemed to be wrong, and I thought that that's what it was.
And you've got your years in the military, your training, your wrestling, MMA. Your body's like, we know this, right? Body's just taking a beating.
Yeah.
And now you've got this going on, popping up on the leg.
And it was just, it was kind of weird, because I could push on this area, and all the it would go away. But at this time it got to a point where it was pretty bad. We went to the concert. Coming back to the car, I thought it was going to be a little easier because we were going downhill, and it was just as painful. The next day, I was at a farmer's market, and I get stuck in the middle of this farmer's market. I cannot move, and I'm looking at my girlfriend, Britta, who is now my new wife, and I was just like, Britta, I can't move. Like, I don't know what is going on. And she's like, I'm going to go get the car. But if I go get the car, I'm taking you to the emergency room. And I'm arguing with her that I don't have insurance. But she's like, you are a veteran and you have VA benefits, and I'm taking you to the VA. And so she takes me to the VA, and I'm thinking they're going to be like, oh, you've got, a pinched nerve or something like that. And the doctor comes in, and at this point, like, everything just gets really weird. He's talking to me, but I'm going numb at this point because he's telling me that I've got a massive blood clot in my femoral artery, and I'm probably looking at having. He's like, you're probably going to have your leg amputated. And I'm sitting there like, like last time I was like, I looked like amputated means he's going to cut my leg off. Like none of this stuff was making sense. And I'm in a wheelchair at this point. Now they're like rushing me to ICU because there's some things that they can do. So they were going to go in one side of my groin and send like a rod through and kind of try to break up the clot. And they were also going to send in some clot buster to kind of like try to break everything up. So the first day that they decide that they're going to do this, nothing happened from it. And so they bring me out, and they're saying, like, we're going to have to go in tomorrow and do the same thing. We're going to be a little bit more aggressive. So they go in the next day, and they're more aggressive. And, they wake me up, and they're just like, there's nothing that we can do. You have this massive clot, and it's like concrete, and for whatever reason, we can't bust through it. So, we're going to give you a big bottle of pain pills, oxycodone, and this bottle of blood thinners. And then you got an appointment, and I think it was four weeks after that. And at this point, I was just like, you got to be kidding me. So I was staying with my girlfriend, and we kind of decided it would probably be best if I just went to stay with my parents until I made whatever decision I was going to make, just because this was a big decision that needed to be made. And she has 2 daughters, and, this was something that, we're also at this point of our relationship, like, we had been dating maybe a year. It was just right at a year. It was kind of at that point where, it could have went the other way, where, she could have been, this is too much, like you're going through, just even going through the death of my wife, because honestly, I hadn't at that time really processed all of that. And now I'm in a hospital, which that was the last place I wanted to be, was a hospital. Like, I was so sick of hospitals. I was so sick of just everything about a hospital. And then now I got this doctor telling me that, like, I'm going to have my leg amputated. And I'm just like, what is going on? And I was a little upset, that I had to go back to Nebraska and stay with my parents. And that's where, I kind of took advantage of having a lot of oxycodone, because, I didn't have anything to do. And I mean, I was in pain, but I don't think I was in as much pain as the pills I was taking. And I probably could have done without a lot of the pills.
Question for you. Thank you for sharing all that, man.
Yeah.
So, going through war, seeing war, losing your first wife, you go from a concert to doc telling you, we need to take the leg. As you've overlaid just professional struggle getting paid in labor-intensive jobs and lots of physical pain. Doc says, here's a big bottle of painkillers back home at the parents. As you're taking those, how much emotional pain and hurt is there compared to the physical pain?
Oh, yeah. That's really what it was. I mean, there was some physical pain, but a lot of it was just, I was just, I was upset just because I'm like, like you can't be serious. Like I'd never heard of anyone having their leg amputated, and I'm sitting there like, this doesn't happen. I was just so mad. And so then, during that time that I was home, I just had one question, like, am I going to have my leg amputated? Like, this was just kind of brought up by the ER doctor. Nothing was really said after that, which was really frustrating too, because it was like, how can you just send somebody home after telling them like they might have their leg amputated, and then just like, hey, come back in 6 weeks and we'll talk about it.
Here's a bottle of painkillers.
Yeah, and it was,
Yeah.
it was just like, okay. So going to the doctor's appointment, I mean, it was basically like, that was the first thing. We sat down and I'm like, okay, here's the deal. Like, am I going to have my leg amputated? Because if I am, and I was like, well, am I? And they're like, well, most likely you probably are. And they're trying to show me why. And I can see, like, I was a plumber by trade before, and I was just like, I can see the blockage. I can see why now. And what was really kind of different too, that they say that this kind of happens to a lot of people when they're older, but their collateral vessels will take over. And for whatever reason, my collateral vessels were clotting as well. So there was no blood flow going below the hip. So at this appointment, they're trying to explain to me that they could possibly do a bypass. And again, I was a plumber, and I'm sitting there looking like, I don't know if that's a bypass. That's a long ways. And then, before they're like, well, if you have a bypass and it fails, you would become an above the knee amputee. And I was like, I don't even want to risk, and they're like, well, we could do it below the knee. And, like, looking back on it now, I was like, why was I like negotiating on this? This should have been, like, to look back on it, it should have been an automatic above the knee. That's the way we should have went right off the bat. But we went in and decided with a below the knee. I turned 40 2 weeks after the surgery, and I was in excruciating pain.
After.
Yeah. And I thought that it was just like, hey, you just had your leg cut off. It's going to be probably a little painful. We had told everybody that for my 40th birthday that my parents were coming into town, my brother and sister and their families, my girlfriend and her daughters, my friends, that we were going up to Estes Park and getting an Airbnb. And that's when things really got bad. And we went to the ER, and the people in the ER they didn't want to mess with me because I was a a VA patient, and like I still had, stitches in my leg, and they're looking at me like, what is going on?
What do we do here?
They're like, we can give you some morphine, but you need to go back to the VA. So I went back, and the doctor came in and looked at my incision, and he's like, I think you have an infection. And so he's like, we're going to have to get you into surgery. But I was on blood thinners at that time, and there's a protocol where it's about a week to wean you off of the blood thinners. So we went, and there are these shots, Lovenox shots in your stomach, and they were horrible. Like that whole process is like in that. So I had 2 amputations in 3 weeks, and I had to go through, I think it was 4 weeks of being like weaned on to the blood thinner, or weaned off and then on again. And it was just, shots in your stomach were just the worst thing ever. So September 11th, we went in, and they explained to me that it was, they were going to clean it out. And then they're like, we might have to amputate it. And then if we do have to amputate it, do you want us to wake you up to let you know, so then we could put you back under to do the amputation?
When you say clean it out, they're going to clean out the area from the first surgery.
Yep.
They're going to amputate further up, possibly.
Yep. They said that we're like, we're going to go in, I think they called it a bereavement is what they called it. We're going to go in, clean it out. We may have to amputate it more. If we do, like, do you want us to wake you up? And I'm just like, well, first of all, you're not going to. So I don't know why we're worried about it. And, then I was just like, no, like, even if it was going to happen, I didn't want you to wake me up to tell me that, then to put me back under. So then, like, I remember waking up, and there's nobody in the room that I'm in. And, like, I remember, like, trying to kind of, like, remember what happened. Like, what? Oh, yeah. Like, that's what happened. And I look under the sheets, and then I see my leg. And I couldn't believe it. That was probably the lowest point of my life right there, when I was just like, you have got to be kidding me. Because all the nurses, after the first surgery, they're like, oh, it's so good that you're a below the knee amputee. You've got that knee joint. When you lose that knee joint, that's when things get real hard. And, 3 weeks later, I'm going in and seeing these same nurses, and they're looking at me like, oh.
Like, now you're that guy. Now you wake up.
Yeah.
And so knee's gone.
Knee's gone. And I freaked out. Yeah, I just could not believe it. And yeah, it was just one of those moments too, like when I was never, even like through all my wife's stuff, I wasn't a religious person. Like I went to church maybe at Christmas time, never really prayed. To be honest with you, I was probably more upset with him. And at this point, like, I was just like, you have got to be kidding me. And like, I really didn't even know what to do. And so, I prayed, and I said, like, I've been through a lot, and I don't know how much more of this I can take. And it was kind of like, show me what, when it was, I'm like, I remember shaking my fist and, just being, I was mad. And it was just like, show me a way. I don't know how much more of this I can take. And that's kind of like when things started to really change. So someone had told me, like, you should look into making this a nonprofit. Because my wife, when she was going through her cancer treatments, her name was Brandy, and her grandpa would say, "Be bold, Brandy." And so I was, they were like, "Well, what do you?" I came up with an idea where I was going to ride a bike from Denver to Omaha. And I've never rode a bike before in my life, like other than just like to the grocery store or something. And
Bicycle, not motorcycle.
yeah,
Pedal bicycle.
yeah. So this is the plan. And they're like, wow, this is really cool. Like, what would you name your ride? And I was just like, how about Be Bold? And they're like, oh, that's awesome. Like this is awesome. So we started to look at the logistics on what this is all going to look like, and it was going to be from, like Denver to Omaha, the VA to the VA. Well, a lot of things changed in that process. First of all, I got out of the hospital, and one of our friends gave me an upright bike to start riding. And I realized that I sucked at riding a bike.
Hey, just want to give a big shout out to one of our sponsors, Imprint Digital. If you're a small business owner, one of the things that you need to navigate to be successful is all things online and digital in terms of marketing and your messaging. Imprint Digital, they're the real deal. They are the professionals, and they know this world inside and out. Make sure to visit their website at imprint-digital.com. If you're a Christian small business owner and you live in Northern Colorado, you have to check out one of our sponsors, the Foundry Advisory. The Foundry is a Christian executive peer advising group that connects other business owners in the community to help you focus on your faith, your life, your leadership, and your business. Make sure to check them out at thefoundryadvisory.com. Hey, if you're a business owner and you need to do some renovation in your space or possibly build a building from the ground up, you have to connect with one of our sponsors, Mendel Construction. Mendel Construction is a commercial construction company that's been around since 1997, serving all of Colorado. They can do a small tenant finish all the way up to ground up construction of a new building for your business. Check them out at mendelandcompany.com. That's MENDEL and company.com. A big shout out and thank you to one of our sponsors, M&D Painting and Roofing. M&D was actually founded by my wife Emily and I back in 2005. And for the last 2 decades, we've been here in Northern Colorado of one of the leaders in residential and commercial repainting, as well as most recently installing residential roofs. So if you need to paint, re-roof, you got hit by a hailstorm, we can take care of whatever your home needs from top to bottom. You can find us on the web at mandepainting.com.
It was hard. Like I was slow. And I have a bike mode on my knee. I have a really nice knee, but it was just difficult to ride.
Well, can I interrupt and just ask? So you're coming out of this and just learning how to do anything, right?
Yeah.
Your leg's gone.
Yeah.
Walking, stairs, just the things you take for granted.
That was the
Learning that now riding a bike. I'm thinking how does that even?
The stairs were the hardest, I think. Like
right.
once I conquered the stairs, it was almost like I could do anything after that.
Okay.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. Walking was tough too. Like there was all these like really cool moments that happened. What made me mad the most was just like I had to really like fight to get my prosthetic leg ready. Like it would always like something was wrong. It was like it was never there, and I'm showing up early. The VA is putting me into a hotel, and they're taking me from the hotel to the VA. And the first hotel that I'm in, they have a taxi service that's taking me, and that was the worst thing because these cab drivers are so rude and like they would take my wheelchair and they were trying to shove it in the trunk, but the lady had her laundry in the back and she can't get my wheelchair in the back because her laundry's there. And now, and it's not, this is a different type of wheelchair. It's like the wheels have to come off and she's trying to like collapse it together like an old school wheelchair and it's not working and she's getting mad and she's slamming. And like I'm getting into these arguments with these taxi drivers. It happened more than once, and then they send me to another hotel, and the shuttle bus driver leaves us, me and another veteran, at the hospital, and and we're stuck at the hospital, and they won't come and pick us up. But there's just all these things that are going on, and and I'm trying to get my leg, and it's not ready yet, and all I have is my wheelchair, and this is on like Colfax, and it's not in the best of areas, and I'm not from even Colorado, and
You're a
I'm
Nebraska boy.
yeah, I'm living down.
You're a
this area.
Nebraska boy, one leg, back of a taxi,
Yep.
jamming your wheelchair all over the taxi, getting in arguments on Colfax.
Yep, and
Like not the nicest part of town.
no, and on a lot of opiates, a lot of opiates.
Pain pilled up.
Yep.
Right.
And it got to a point where, like, I swear there were mice running around my room. And I would bring in, like, these weights just so I could do workouts in my room. And I'm throwing these weights at these mice. And I'm like, I know that, like, I'm killing them. And I'm going over there and there's nothing there.
No mice.
And then after, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes of me then going like, wow, they're pretty quick. Like then, like, wait, there is no mice. And then, having a big, long look at myself in the mirror and saying, you need to go into the doctors and tell them that you're done with this crap. And I went in and I told them, I go, listen, I've been trying to kill mice in my room that aren't there. I go, I am done with the oxycodone. And they're like, oh, you can't just quit cold turkey. And I was like, I just did. And then so they're sitting there telling me, like, going through this process of quitting. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm not doing that. Like, there's no process. Like, I am done. When you're chasing mice in your hotel room and they're not there and you realize they're not there, you're like, it's, it was just like, I'm done with any of this stuff. And then I remember I even took a picture of all the pills that I was taking in a day. And I think there were 12 bottles. And it was just like, this is ridiculous.
Are those all oxys and pain pills, or are there other things as well?
There were others. There was like gabapentin, which was like a nerve blocker, which, and there was morphine and oxycodone. And then since I have a blood issue, there was the warfarin, and then just, they also thought that if I took Lipitor, which is a cholesterol pill, that would help with the blood clots. And a lot of it was they're just guessing. Because I'm like, you're giving me a cholesterol medicine. My cholesterol was under 100. Overall cholesterol was under 100. And I'm like, I can understand, like, having too high of cholesterol is a bad thing, but couldn't having too low of cholesterol be a bad thing too? And why am I on a cholesterol medicine? Because the side effects too is like, I don't believe that what the benefits of this pill don't outweigh what the side effects and the risks are, in my opinion. So a lot of that stuff was like, they would prescribe it for me, but then I was just like, I'm not taking that. It doesn't make any sense for me to take that. And it's like, I'm the one that's in charge here, not you guys. You guys are just recommending stuff. Like, I'm the one that's really in charge. That's kind of what I learned through that whole process is, like, a lot of people don't know that. They allow their doctor to be in charge of their healthcare. And it's just like, you're the number one person that's in charge of your own healthcare. And I think a lot of people forget that.
So you're done seeing mice. You quit cold turkey, man.
Yeah.
So I'm just picturing you. I'm picturing you fighting with a taxi driver.
Oh yeah.
Wheelchair, one leg, no knee, pain pilled up, and you said, "I'm done."
I downloaded the Rocky theme song, and that's what I would play, rolling my wheelchair in, and I'd pick up my leg, and I'd put myself through those walking bars, and I would learn. I was just like, and then to even look back on it, the whole prosthetic was not done the best. It was like a 5-gallon bucket. And I'm trying to balance myself in this. And it was more of just pure grit going through that. Like walking up the stairs, there's a stair mode, which whoever created the stair mode, they had 2 legs, because if they had 1 leg, they never would have. They would have been like, this is the dumbest idea ever.
What is that? Was that Garfield? Whoever created this should be drug out into the street.
No, yes.
Right? Remember that?
Oh, yes.
Remember that saying? This is Garfield, right?
Yes. And and that's one thing that I found, like a lot of the decisions and the things that were going on in my life were done by 2-legged people.
Yeah.
You know, and I was just like,
You call them something, don't you?
two-leggers.
Or normies. Is that a thing? Or is that just a you and Nico thing? Or is that actual?
No, well, that was actually, I got that. So
you have language for us.
we do.
Two-legged individuals.
I call you guys two-leggers.
Two-leggers?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a friend. He was a part of the U.S. ski team, and there was all different abilities that were in that group. So they would call you guys normies.
Yeah.
I started kind of using it, but I like two-leggers better.
Every tribe has their language, man.
I know.
Awesome. You know what's interesting is so I don't know if Joey's picking it up on the production side, but right as you started sharing the turn of your story, I heard a break fall right below us because we have our kids class.
Nice.
They're literally starting to train right now, so it's going to get loud. Maybe we'll hear it, maybe we won't. But I think this is a really great spot. I'm just listening to everything you've said, right? Hearing your story, just getting to know you.
Yeah.
45 minutes here, and all of this pain and hurt and loss and the taking away, right? You're having these things taken away and you can't do it anymore. And I don't want to forget something you mentioned, want to come back to it, is you said, hey, like you prayed out to God in that moment.
Yep.
And what did he say? What did you hear? How does that play into your life? Because you're wearing the shirt. I peeked at your card that we're going to read.
Yep.
How did he respond to your prayer?
Well, I believe he kind of showed me the whole be bold. And from that, we started that into a nonprofit, and I got into, after everything from Denver, I was able to get out of Denver. I came back up to Fort Collins, and I'm living with my girlfriend, Britta, and she gave me a Bible card that had Jeremiah 29:11 on it. And again, I was not religious. I didn't know Bible verses. I mean, honestly, I didn't know anything about the Bible other than, Jesus was born, and that's what we celebrate Christmas. And I mean, that's basically all I really knew is Christmas and Easter. She showed me that verse, and I don't know if she intended on that verse, but it spoke to me, and it was kind of like everything that was going on is I'm not being punished, and it's kind of a test to see if I could to do it without giving up or going, because I told I was gonna, whatever I was gonna do next, I was gonna do it 100%, and if that was give up, I was gonna give up 100%, and or, just trying to figure out what this next step was. I was going to do it 100%. And it started with boxing, which was a really good way to vent out frustration. And I called up Ryan, and he would pick me up Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I would go hit that heavy bag as hard as I could. And I learned how to box again. And, I was trying to figure it out. I was a southpaw before, and it's my right leg. Am I still going to stand in that same stance? Just going through that whole process. Can I throw a kick? Can I throw these knees? And then I started to also realize that I had been doing it in my wheelchair. I'm doing it with my prosthetic leg on, that this could help other people, And then we started doing boxing clinics. Actually, to go back, that bike ride that we were talking about, I found a hand cycle that you can pedal with your hands. And the VA will give veterans that qualify hand cycle. You have to just do the paperwork. It's a 6-month process. But we did the paperwork. I got the hand cycle. I had found another one on Craigslist, and I had started training. And me and another veteran, we changed the route up. We went from Fort Collins to Omaha, and we ended at the Omaha Med Center, University of Nebraska, the Med Center there. That's where my wife did all of her cancer treatments. When we finished there, we were at 590 miles. My veteran friend had a recumbent that he pedals with his feet, and mine was with my arms. We did that in 6 days of riding, and our hotel was in Council Bluffs, which was just 10 miles away. And so when we finished the ride, it was like 600 miles pretty much right on the nose, which was just, it blew me away that we hit something like that. And it was just like right. And we didn't plan it that way, because we did have some misdirections in some of the routes that we had gone on. But it was an awesome ride, like none of us had ever done anything like that before. I did multiple 100-mile days, which I had done 3 century rides before that, but that's all I did, was a century ride. And like I had, all the time to recover from it. I think we did 2 back-to-back, where it was a whole nother level of like reaching down deep. And one day we got rained on for, I think it was 5 hours straight, and it was just, it was crazy to think that, I rode a hand cycle 600 miles. But yeah, and then we started doing the boxing clinics. And then I asked my coach, Ryan, I was just like, do you think I could get into grappling again? And he was just like, I don't know, but you're going to have to find a way to make your disability an advantage. And like when he said that, it like this light bulb went off, and I just started finding all of these ways to submit people that they'd never been submitted before having one leg. And we started calling it Nub Jitsu.
Nub Jitsu. And we were talking about that. I have a friend, Mike McCallowicks. He wrote a business book called Get Different, and it's just getting a different look and perspective on marketing. He calls it the disadvantage advantage. What is that thing that's your detriment that everybody looks at and says, you're not able to do this because you lack this. And they're getting choked by it.
Yep.
So for those people that don't know jiu-jitsu, like we've had a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, MMA guys on the show. There's definitely an audience that knows jiu-jitsu, but what's your favorite submission? What's the, if you and I go roll downstairs, what are you going to catch me with that I'm not even going to realize, right? You're a brown belt. I'm a black belt. We're high-level guys. I'm going to pass your guard because you don't have a leg on the right side. So I'm going to pass it there. What's going to happen to me?
I'll armbar you. If you come to my right side, it would be your left side. Yeah, I would go for an armbar. And then people started to understand that, so they're able to really pull that arm out quick. And then I hit. There's a secondary arm bar that I can hit. From that, I'll just attack the other arm. I used to hit it when I had two legs. And I remember like, oh, I wonder if I could hit that secondary armbar from that same position. And I have enough leg on this side where I can still catch the arm. Then people started to stop passing on that side and they started going to the other side. And then I have a whole Kimura series that I run through. And I love the Kimura. If I take top position, I love side control. And then I have a whole series. I love Darces from up top. I love hitting Darces actually from anywhere. I've got a whole little Darce series that I like to run as well. But what I love about it is like just finding. When I was in the hospital, those doctors were telling me everything that I couldn't do. They were telling me like, for me to walk again was almost like going to be a miracle to them too, and it was just like, it blew me away. And now, like I got my brown belt, and I'm looking, I'm looking at those next steps of getting my black belt and like, what does that look like? And, I've had really cool experiences where I got to be a part of a United States Para Jiu-Jitsu team. And I traveled, we started our first tournament was in LA, and that's where we all got kind of met each other. And then I went on to London and Abu Dhabi after that and competed. And then I competed in Sweden. Professor Fabiano Schörner is our head black belt, and he had came down for promotions, and he had just done his BJJ Fanatics video. And I said, Professor, do you think that a Nub Jitsu video would be, what do you think about that? Because I have a lot of coaches and people that will get a hold of me and ask me certain questions like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? I have a friend that's an amputee, or I have a student, or the person themselves are amputees. And I was like, man, it would really be cool. Because Brazil, they had over 5,000 para athletes that compete in para jiu-jitsu. And these are documented, like they are signed up, ready to compete.
Which, to give people that may not know jiu-jitsu some perspective, right? Jiu-jitsu coming from Brazil, there's a lot of people that do that, but 5,000 is a huge, huge number. Even in Brazil, that many people.
Yep. And it's
para jiu-jitsu. That's a lot. I never would have thought that.
No, it blew me away, like even how quickly that it was growing. Professor El Serle Silva is like the head in Brazil, and he's also the head of the UAE JJF. And to see how him and his group have just grown is awesome. And I'm like, I want to mimic what they're doing. I want to, and I think that like with my connections with the veteran population, I go, what better, for me, it has been the best rehabilitation. It was way better than boxing. To be honest with you, to find something that they, I was told that I was disabled. I have a handicap placard, and now I'm a brown belt and I compete, and I love it. And it's this superpower that I never even knew that existed until like you put yourself into these situations, and then all of a sudden it's just, and my guys at the gym, they say I cheat, and I love it because, they say I cheat on many levels because one, I weigh less than I would if I had my leg.
What does a leg weigh?
This one's about 15 pounds.
So when they took your leg, you lost 15 pounds.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So like I compete at 145, and I probably and I don't cut weight at all. And if I cut weight, yeah, so I walk around probably at 160, which is nice. I'm also getting. I tell people, I go, yeah, it's pretty cool that I'm doing all this stuff with one leg, but I'm also 48 years old. And I go, I am probably more proud that I'm 48 years old and still doing this stuff than I am with one leg. Actually, the one leg thing is an advantage, I think.
Jiu-jitsu's hard on the body. I'm 40. I'll be 42 this summer, and I've got a blown disc, back surgery, torn meniscus. I've got a disc in the neck that something's going to happen with that, I'm sure, at some point.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's one of those where it's like, I tell people like, yeah, you should get into jiu-jitsu. And they're like, oh, I'm 35, you know how it is. And I'm like, 35. I'm like,
Bro, I'm 48. I got one leg. Come on, man. Stop your excuses.
And like once they do start to come in, they realize like, oh, this is why. And a lot of it too is the community. You're killing so many birds with one stone. The gym is so much more than just a gym, and like to find that community and it has been so helpful too. Like having the gym is just huge, and that's what I want to show people is like, just because whatever you're going through doesn't mean that you still can't get to the gym.
Yeah.
And that's where you're going to find a lot of your rehabilitation is going to be in the gym. And like, what better place to fall down? There's nice soft mats there.
Yeah.
You can learn how to fall down the right way. And the people there too, they're so willing to help. Like I remember when I was a white belt, and they were so willing to help me figure out like what this would look like with one leg. Because none of us knew, well, I don't know.
You're all learning together.
Yeah.
Like, nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah. And it was like, well, try this, try that. And then I was able to kind of compile, and a lot of it was what not to do, of course. And then figuring out like, I don't have a post on this side, so one side works better than the other side. And but just trying to, like figuring all of that out was so rehabilitating.
Yeah.
And then like how it can help other people through that same process too. Like whatever you're going through, the gym is there, and it can like help accommodate through all of that stuff. And that's what's so beautiful about it. We do the Rocksteady Boxing for Parkinson's, and we've got 83-year-olds at the gym, and it's so awesome to see. I look at them, they thank me, and I'm just like, I need to be thanking you. Like I could be 83 and have Parkinson's, and I hope that I have the attitude that they have, where they're coming in and they're still, they come in 3 days a week, and, they could definitely make an excuse on why they couldn't, or they don't want to come in, and they're coming in and they got a big smile on their face. And I'm like, if these guys can come in and have a smile on their face, then I can do the same thing. Yeah. But that's one thing that's pretty cool about all of that is, my first sergeant, when I was in the Army, I used to get into some fist fights every now and again, and I would get into a little bit of trouble, and he would tell me that fighting was going to get me nowhere. And I wish that he could kind of see where fighting has got me, and I knew what he meant. I knew what he meant, but it's kind of that same fighter attitude, is what's got me through a lot of that stuff.
Well, let's find a way, right? Your story is such a great example of so many things. We were talking downstairs. I got told by a teacher that I'd never become anything. And that same teacher, 35 years later, just donated to our scholarship, yep. Right? And it's a little bit of that. Screw you, I'll show you. Probably yep. A little bit of that.
Oh, yeah.
And fighters are going to fight. And I think that's a natural born thing, maybe also a learned thing through experience. But we're getting ready to wrap up. We're gonna have to do another episode, man, because there's so much more I want to talk about. We've actually got some jiu-jitsu kids downstairs that are excited to meet you.
Nice.
But a couple final questions before we wrap up. Your story is such one of just perseverance over pain, triumph over struggle. You're at the end of the rope. You said, hey, I'm going to go all in one way or the other, right? Which is I'm going to go do life. I'm going to go figure out a way, or I'm going to go the total other way, 100%. Somebody that's listening to this right now who just heard this episode or came in on it, however they heard your story, and they say, you know what, that all sounds great, Rustin, but I'm going to go the other way. I'm done. I'm checking out. I'm out of here. What do you want to give them as a word of encouragement if they're at that place? Because you've been at that place.
Yeah, I think that once you get to that point, just pray. I think that that's kind of what it took for me to, and then things started to change right after that, and I thought that before I had to pray in a certain way, and this time I just let it out, and so there is no way that you have to pray, and I think that that's kind of what he wants. He wants to hear what you want, and when you let it out, things start to change. And when you give it to God, it makes things a lot easier for you. That's one thing that I realized is wow, I wish I would have done this a long time ago. It just took a lot of weight that, I thought that I had to carry, and I didn't have to carry that weight. And, I don't think that, I've talked about this before. I don't think that I ever would have seriously committed suicide. I don't think that I was ever at that point, but I know that I was going to commit spiritual suicide. I was going to just become this shell of a person that was just basically angry and waiting to die.
Dead man walking.
Yep.
With one leg.
Yep. No, for real.
Right.
And at that point, I was even the leg was this blessing. Yeah. And I mean, to even think about it right now, I would not be sitting here if I didn't lose my leg. And that's one thing that I think is so cool about all of this is to look back. It was if I didn't lose my leg, then this wouldn't have happened, then that wouldn't have happened, then that wouldn't have happened, and then this wouldn't have happened, then I wouldn't be sitting in the seat right now. And there's so many things that are coming up, and I'm just so excited, and I think that it all, I look back and it all started from that that prayer that, and it was such a defining kind of moment, and even the Jeremiah 29:11 that my wife had given me, that it was this slap in the face. It was one of those listen, I'm not punishing you. I'm seeing if you're ready to take the next step. And so I was just it was. So to go back to that, it was just to pray, and I think he will guide you the way you need to be guided.
And I love that you said just do it, and you're an example. It's never too late, and don't worry about how you do it. Just do it.
Yeah,
love it.
It'll change your life.
Now I think you've given away a little bit your card that we're going to close out and read. When you came into the office here to the building, everybody that comes on this podcast goes to our color wall. They pick their favorite color. You're here with this mission to be bold, right? To be bold and brave and all of these things. This is what this show's all about. And you've taken your struggle and turned it into something literally with what was taken away from you. You're now able to pour in and give into people. So So let's wrap up the show. Grab your card, and I know what you're going to read.
Yep.
So let's hear it.
Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Man, I thought of these other ones too, but like this is the biggest one, you know, like that really changed like the way that I really started to look at my situation. But yeah, and now like getting into the Bible, I have this reading where I can read the New Testament in a year, and so I've really been finding all these other amazing verses that really hit home as well.
Man, it's an honor to have you. We're going to come back and do another episode.
Awesome.
I want to experience the Nub Jitsu. We're going to go downstairs, say hi to some kids, and Rustin.
Awesome.
That's a wrap, my man.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you ready to make massive breakthroughs in your leadership, and do you want to do so in a really unique way? You should consider coming to Spain with me. April 27th to May 4th of 2024, I am hosting the Ultimate Immersion Experience in Spain. I'm taking a very small group of business owners and business leaders over to Spain for the fun, sun, food, culture, and cuisine of the country. But more importantly, we are going to be putting together some very intentionally crafted adventures, challenges, and experiences to massively push you out of your comfort zone and learn about your own leadership in a very unique way. Go to mattshoup.com, click on the Travel to Spain with Matt button, and check out the Ultimate Immersion Experience.